we are not alone.
These are supposed to be some of the most verified images of giants.
People who do meditation for 60 days will lengthen their telomeres.
Soon we'll get results, and we'll let you know right here on Beyond Belief. Things seem to be changing in the field of ufology.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
That's priceless.
Isn't that amazing?
Tesla wanted free energy, and look what happened to him.
Plenty of evidence to show that they're real. The real question is how and why.
There were Egyptian hieroglyphs out in the outback of Australia.
In Australia. What are the possibilities? Mars was inhabited, and these were built. We almost can't duplicate today. These are amazing topics. What if there was something like at Area 51 deep underwater?
They were killed by some animal.
Believe me, we're just getting started. I'm George Norrie, and we here at Gaia are committed to revealing the truth. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Jeff Harmon back with us. Second-generation astrologer, paranormal researcher, spiritual consultant with 47-plus years of experience. He's the only astrologer on the planet who stores his clients' records in filing cabinets given to him by the one and only George Carlin. Harmon offers detailed personal and business readings using Vedic, classical, astrolocation astrology. He also offers corrective measures, and he works with clients to design custom talisman made with natural untreated gems. He has solved many paranormal cases involving haunted dwellings, UFO-related events, and possession. Tonight we're going to talk with him about the outlook for 2023 and how the rest of this country looks like. Jeff, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me back, George.
How have you been?
I've been good, thank you.
Good. Tell us a little bit about ancient astrology. It's different from what the modern astrologers practice, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Modern astrology really looks a lot at the tropical systems. It's very sun sign orientated. The ancient systems was really astronomy, and I think that's the core difference. Is that it really is looking at astronomy equated to life on Earth. It's a much more spiritual-based look, and again, I love that the Vedic astrology particularly is, if I always say, forget Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus, this might be the real matrix when you look at the Nadi and the Vedic astrology and how it equates to what's happening here down on the ground.
Absolutely. And you use a technique called interrogation astrology. What is that?
Interrogation astrology is also known as horary. The founding fathers were into electional astrology and interrogation astrology. It really proves the universe as an interactive consciousness because you can cast a chart for a question. You don't need your birth time. You just literally can say, where's my cat? Was that UFO real? Or is my house possessed? And you can look at just about anything under the sun, literally. And I was very skeptical of this many years ago. My mother got me into this stuff in the mid-'70s. And I said, come on. I said, this stuff doesn't work, right? And she said, Jeffrey, try it before you knock it. And I did. And I have to say, interrogation astrology is probably the one that is the cornerstone of most of the ancient stuff that came up out of Egypt, Chaldea, and Greece and India. So it's really amazing. It's always blown my mind at how accurate it is.
And you really
don't
don't
remote viewing.
And you really don't need people's information, birth information, do you?
You don't need anything. The only thing you need is the question. That's it.
Why does astrology work, Jeff?
That's a good question. Again, I think it's an interactive consciousness. And when we start getting into the older documents in the Hebrew, the Egyptian, and particularly the Vedantic, I really think we have a matrix here going on with the solar system and the heavens, because it clearly shows, you really have to integrate the spiritual aspect of humanity and life itself on this planet. when you really talk about the ancient astrology, and I think that's what attracted me the most to the Vedantic and the Nadi astrology, is because when you have a soul, it really, you're looking at spirit becoming manifest on the physical plane. And anyone who's had a child and has had the blessing of being in a delivery room, and I was with my son, I literally had always heard the report that the soul is tied to the body at first breath. And when I was sitting in the delivery room, I was able to see my son be taken out, cesarean, and I never expected it, but I saw two illuminations right when he cried. And that was, for me, the most profound time in my life. I just went, oh, my God, the rumor or the legend is true. That's actually in a text called the Sefer Haggadah, which Sefer means book in the Aramaic and Hebrew, and Haggadah means the legends of the soul. And I never knew if it was true until that happened. And that changed my life a lot at the way I looked at astrology. And then when I start looking at these ancient texts, and I have the blessings of doing readings every day, and I see this, and I see, oh, my God, your father was this way, or your mother was that way. And I get the response on the other end of the Zoom call or the phone, how did you know? Well, because it's in the chart. And, it took me a long time to accept the reality that, wow, we are looking at an interactive consciousness of souls manifest on the physical plane. And that's really what I think the ancient astrology was. And if you take the manifestation of the soul into a physical form out of the equation, then you've just got a bunch of signs and planets that mean nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Jeff, when you were with us a year ago, you talked about the United States being under great duress, probably in trouble. You probably are right.
Well, I don't know if I'm right, but I think the astrology is right. I can tell you that. That's always what I drop back to. I very humbly observe this stuff. This is a branch called mundane astrology. Mundane astrology is the study of the heavens, and this goes all the way back to probably one of the oldest texts extant, and that is called the Sefer Ratziel, which is the book of the Archangel Ratziel. And there you start getting into, instead of signs, planets, and houses, the angelic hierarchies that are believed to be behind all the planets and the signs and the houses and the stars. And when you go forward and you start looking at events in the world, you start seeing, wow, these guys really had something. See, the United States was formed right during the Industrial Revolution. When George Washington was fighting the war with the French and the Indians, we had a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the fire trine. Then on the winter solstice of 2020, we had the next conjunction 240-something years later, which is now ushering in a whole new era. It's not the Aquarian age like a lot of people think, but it is a high-tech revolution that I think we're going to see AI and transhumanism forced upon us, as well as a lot of very high technological things that we have never seen before. And what's a problem with this is the United States has a Pluto return. And among several other things, it also has an aspect that's going on right now that's completing this March that happened right before the Civil War in 1861. And that's a Neptune square Mars. And people ask me, well, what does that mean? And, that's kind of a very tricky subterfuge energy. I always liken that to, people telling you something exactly opposite of what it means, kind of what we're hearing a lot right now in the media. And the Pluto return, just for people who don't know what Pluto returns are, Pluto takes somewhere between 240 and 250 years to go around the solar system.
Right.
And a lot of people say, yeah, but Pluto really isn't a planet. They demoted it, right? And I always say, well, three things come in small packages: C4, dynamite, and Napoleon. And they all seem to have a lot of power. And I can tell you, Pluto sure shows up in astrology. 9/11 happened precisely on the Saturn-Pluto opposition. The banks crashed in 2008 exactly on the Saturn-Pluto square, and COVID broke out exactly on the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So we've got the Pluto return on the United States. The Roman Empire divided on the first Pluto return. It completely dissolved on the second one. So the United States is either not going to be here as we know it in 2 years.
2 years? Wow.
Yeah. Or it's going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes.
Jeff, I understand you've looked at a lot of these UAP events, unidentified aerial phenomena. How did you tie that in with astrology?
Well, it's I looked at a lot. I was actually asked by the director of the UFO MUFON group out of Tucson, and we looked at Travis Walton, Maelstrom Base, all kinds of, the Shag Harbor crash.
Huge cases.
Yeah, huge cases. And what we found in most of these was the individuals that experienced it, at least, had definite astrological phenomena in their chart that lined up with it. I've noticed this, too, with remote viewers. I've had the opportunity of getting hired to do remote viewing group studies. In other words, people who are ex-military or involved in that area. I can't say too much. But we've noticed that clearly paranormal phenomena and alignments with the moon and nodes are very, very common. I often find abductions are very prominent when Saturn is making malefic or hard aspects in 6th, 8th, or 12th house placements in the chart. So it's very interesting stuff. Also in the Vedic astrology, a lot of alignments there too.
You've been called in by remote viewing groups as well. What was that all about?
Well, again, they were looking at why were they hitting targets at certain times and why weren't they? And it was different for different individuals. And invariably, we found that the cycles of the astrology to each individual had huge effects, as well as the general positions of the Earth, lining up with fixed stars, passing through certain points through the year would have a huge effect. Lunar aspects were huge, absolutely huge, and remote viewing.
Tremendous work that you do, Jeff, by the way. Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Very interesting stuff.
Keeps you going, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely keeps me going, yeah.
You've also been touching a little bit on hauntings and clearing people of negative attachments. How do you tie that into astrology?
Well, that's where interrogation and electional astrology really plays. Interrogation astrology is literally asking a question. Is this place possessed? Does it have a ghost or entities or elementals or what have you? And so you can cast a chart and look at that. It'll tell you whether or not that's highly probable. And then clearing it, I actually use an auspicious time to do the clearing. I actually have a mural of George Washington. They did a Masonic ritual when they lowered the cornerstone of the Capitol Foundation into place. That's called electional astrology, picking an auspicious time to commence an event. And let's hope he did a good job because the country is under some heavy duress right now. So that's how you use it. It's picking auspicious times to do a clearing on a place or a person.
Let's talk about the country right now. You've looked at it. How do things look for the next year?
Not too good. And I would love to be wrong on this, but there's something known as primary directions. Primary directions is a fancy term that each rotation of the Earth actually equals a year from the birth chart of either an individual or a country. Well, this year, particularly as fall moves on, we've got a primary directed Mars conjuncting the moon. Plain English on that one, that's very dangerous. And I don't think anyone needs a brick to fall on their head to know that there's been a lot of very dangerous things going on in this country with the border being infiltrated. There's a lot of crime that's being allowed to happen, a lot of dissension. Look at the fentanyl coming in. Look at the people being let out of prisons and the soft on crime. So this is really paralleling the astrology. And I can tell you, I hope I'm wrong, but this looks like we could see some serious trouble by this fall. The election year of 2024 even looks more dangerous. We have a primary directed Saturn conjuncting the United States Mars. Again, plain English on that, not looking too good. So I hope that these don't manifest in a lot of violence and unrest, because it's one newscast away, and many of the people hidden away that I think have been brought in here could be cut loose. And I think there's a lot of cells in this country right now. I hope I'm wrong about that, but the astrology would support that.
And is that what you mean by it could be a dangerous year? 24?
Yep. Well, both this year and next year. And just to give you a perspective on this, George, primary directions only happen once every 360 years.
That's it?
That's it, by primary direction, yeah. Because they move 1 degree per year. And if you take a circle, there's 360 degrees in it. So this has never happened to the United States. And this is coming in November 28th. But that's the day it's exact. It's called the alignment is perfected. But you're going to find we have, nothing happens in isolation. There are several confluencing events here that are coming up. We've got the inferior conjunction of Venus happening starting in July, and that will complete in the fall. So, we got some serious stuff here stacking up. When you look at what Elon Musk has done, in a lot of ways, Elon Musk, I kind of refer to him as the modern-day Thomas Paine. If, anyone wants to research Thomas Paine, he's the man who wrote Common Sense, and he had a lot to do with awakening the people of the revolution to what was really going on. And this is very parallel to what we're seeing right now. The Twitter dumps are staggering what's coming out. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, fueling people to realize the value of this country and what's been happening. And we've got a war going on right now between what I would call the globalists and the nationalists. And this is what the astrology really seems to show.
And speaking about war, Jeff, what about Russia and Ukraine? How does that stack up astrologically?
Well, it looks like they're trying to get a lot of conventional warfare going right now. It's very profitable. And, there's certainly a lot more going on in Ukraine than meets the eye. Not to sound conspiratorial, but I think there may be a little more things down the rabbit hole going on over there that is the cause of all this. And we might mention labs, for instance. And clearly there's a lot of saber rattling going on between China and Russia and Iran, and we're seeing, again, a global polarization here between the East and the West. And I did have several people ask whether or not they thought it was going to go nuclear. And I hope I'm right about this, or the chart is right. It doesn't look like that will happen.
Thank God. Let's hope you're right.
Yeah, thank God, right. Yeah, that.
Now, what about China? You mentioned China, but what about China and Taiwan, that situation? Yeah. I just had a story yesterday that the Chinese are thinking about Taiwan in a very quick, rapid way because they've seen the mistakes Russia has made in Ukraine.
Yep. I think they really want to do it. The chart keeps saying, the interrogations keep coming back, they're not going to be able to pull it off. I really think the United States has a lot of extraterrestrial reverse engineering technologies. So I can tell you I've had the opportunity of speaking to a few people who are very knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And not that I'm claiming, I've got any super big inside secrets, but from what I've heard and what keeps coming back to me, we've got some pretty substantial stuff right now that would be able to deter or stop them if they did. And again, the only way China's going to take Taiwan is if we let them.
Are we in a position to try to stop them?
My sources say yes, and the astrology says yes too.
Interesting take on all of this. It really is.
Yeah.
We're going to take calls with you, Jeff, next hour, and people, you will do somewhat readings, and we need birth dates from folks. So give that to Tom when you call in.
You can just ask questions too. They don't have to have birth dates.
You don't need them?
No, you can get them if you want, but that's interrogation astrology, George. You just ask a question.
That's true. That's interesting. Yeah. How did you get so tuned up for this?
Tuned up? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you're very good at what you do. What happened? How did that happen?
I don't know. Maybe it's a past life thing. I've really had a blessing to be involved in many people who were deeply into secrets and religions and astrology, and I've just had a real blessing to get exposed to a lot of different people. One of the guys I studied with used to do astrology for the Rothschilds, and I shouldn't mention that, but I just did. He's gone now, but he would sit there and look at charts and say, oh, this person will have this happen here, they'll get married here, and they'll die here. And I said, how did you do that? And he said, it's very simple. He says, the ancient astrology is so different. He says, Saturn is your karma, Jupiter is the blessings upon the soul, and the moon's nodes are the destiny disruptors. And they will take you out of this body, or they will put you into your movie, so to speak. Like Shakespeare said, the whole world's a stage, and we're the actors. And I was really blown away with that because I had never seen astrology like that. And that really put me on a path. And also some of the people in the 80s really turned me on to things that I had run into. Maybe it's a blessing. I don't know. But I certainly am very humble about it because astrology is exceedingly complex. I don't think anyone will ever fully figure it out. I really believe this place is a place where spirit manifests, and we're all souls having a physical experience. And that's what the charts show.
Is it still too early in the game to pinpoint some presidential candidates for 24?
Well, I know they'd like to run Michelle Obama, but I keep getting she's not going to get any traction. I think it's going to be crazy. I think they're going to try and this is one election I wouldn't be surprised if it did get disrupted. I don't think Biden is going to finish his presidency. The reason why, when you look at the inauguration chart of the Biden-Harris administration, it was really hideous. In fact, Ronald Reagan used to meet an astrologer named Carol Ryder over at Nate Nell's when he was governor. And he was actually re-signed in at, I think, 12:02 midnight in order to get the chart right because he knew the value of the elections on which you're signed in, when you're signed in. And this chart, the inauguration chart for Biden, I think he's going down. I really do. I don't think he's going to finish his presidency.
Where does that put Kamala Harris?
It might put her in the presidency.
Really?
Unless something else happens. At this juncture, it's looking pretty dim for him. I mean, Biden, we don't need much to tell us he's not too competent. And I don't think I've ever seen a president this awry in his presidency. Have you ever seen anything like this, George? It's like a picture show. It's virtual insanity.
Everything's nuts. Everything's nuts
it's
these days.
Crazy. And if you look at the inauguration chart for Biden, it shows he doesn't go past his third year.
Does astrology, Jeff, tell you what will happen or that just something could happen and we just don't know what it is?
Well, that's the riddle. Astrology, interrogation astrology is like an all-wise, all-tricky oracle, and it truly is. If you can pick apart the symbolism and cross-compare it to the reality of the situation, you can get pretty doggone descriptive. And I would tell you that Biden looks like they're throwing him under the bus. And that's exactly, and I was on record saying that about 3 months ago before any of this document stuff happened. I said, I don't think Biden's going to finish his presidency. And now all this stuff is coming out. And we're finding with Twitter how much has been buried in not only, Joe Biden's presidency, but his son and many of the other coercive acts that have been going on with government agencies. And this is a cocktail that's very, very dangerous. George Carlin was right. Forget about the politicians. You have owners. They own this place, and they are far above the government. Thomas Jefferson might have said it best. He said, if you give anybody the power to print our money, they will be more dangerous than any standing army. Well, that kind of happened with Woodrow Wilson. And, Washington also had a great comment. George Washington was quoted saying, if you want to destroy a country, loot the treasury. Well, what's been happening?
They've been looting the treasury big time.
Big time. George, this is a fun thing. I want to say this really fast. I took a calculator. I used to teach a physics class. I enjoy math, right? So I figured out that when you're 40 years old, you're just a bit over 1 billion seconds old. When you're 80, you're about 2 billion seconds old. Guess how many years 1 trillion seconds is, just to kind of cross-correlate between what $1 trillion is. Just take a guess. What do you think 1 trillion seconds is?
In terms of years?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. 5,000 years?
It works out to be 11,760-something odd years. I couldn't believe it. I've done the math now 50 times. I can't believe it.
I was only off by 5,000 years.
Yeah, about 6. Yeah, pretty good, George. But I couldn't believe it. And that gives people a perspective. Who could come up with the collateral for 31 trillion, let alone what the entire Western financial world is indebted with?
You're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you've got a website, a lot of social presence, right?
Yeah. In fact, we just started our new YouTube, so definitely go check us out there, Jeff Harmon Astrologer or Jeff Harmon Astrology. Got a lot of good stuff on there on some of the topics we're hitting tonight, too.
It never ends. This planet seems to be so topsy-turvy, doesn't it?
Yep, it never ends. It's always the war between good and evil, and it really, truly is.
Does good always win?
I believe so. I really do. God is above everything, no matter what your faith is, and that's one of the things that you asked at the beginning of the show. What's the difference between ancient astrology and the modern? Clearly, the ancient astrology shows the divinity bleeding down into this lower dimension called Earth. And I think this is, speaking of the founding forefathers, many of them were at loggerheads with the religions and the churches because they knew there were multi-dimensions. You take Washington, D.C., it is literally an Egyptian temple. The French architect and a lot of the secret societies that were behind the formation of the United States was really sacred. And, I tell everybody, go get a copy of the Constitution of the United States of America. No one can read that and not say, wow, this is for the betterment of all humanity. And it truly, truly is. I think it's one of the most profound documents ever drafted next to some of the great religious texts. And it's clearly at a point right now with the astrology where I think we're seeing a battle between good and evil. Fascism really came in with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of 2020. We know it as COVID, but the astrology shows it as this is a war against humanity and its freedom. And I think, what you were just mentioning about Newsmax on your commercial is just a small example of what we're seeing in every corner of society. And I think the country that's in the crosshairs the most is America.
Yeah.
And it's one of the greatest countries ever.
I don't know if you heard that story in our news segment where 2 Iranian kids were dancing in the streets and they're going to put them in jail.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yep. Beyond crazy. And, when you read the Constitution and you look at the wisdom, George Washington had a lot of mystery. I really encourage people to study some of the founding fathers. The document Common Sense by Thomas Paine was amazing. And George Washington, they actually said 2 horses were shot out from underneath him, and every officer was killed with him except for Braddock. And later, a number of years later, when he was with the Revolutionary Army, an Indian chief approached him and said, "We saw a great spirit above you. We tried to shoot you. There was bullet holes in his hat and his coat, and yet he never got hit with a bullet once." Now, whether or not all that is just lore or truth, I actually believe it was truth. I think there was something very spiritual going on in the creation of this country. And we now have, I think, forces that are trying to tear it apart. And that's what the astrology shows. And I think things like the exposure that's happening on, programs like yours and Twitter and other things, it's really what it's going to take to bring our country back under the control of the people. And I saw in Nadi astrology, and for anyone listening, Nadi astrology is a very ancient system. It uses palm leaves and very spiritual energies that make an analysis of the birth chart. And one of the things that was pleasing to me, even though it's going to be a rough time for the next 2 years, we just entered a 12-year progression where Jupiter, which is really a blessing. We know Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. But in the Nadi astrology, it actually represents something called the breath of the soul, and they call it Jiva. And I can tell you, I can already start to feel it. Even though we got a really tough, resistive time this next couple of years, and it's going to be a roller coaster ride if the astrology is right, we may have a blessing that comes out at the end of the tunnel by 2025. So this is really going to be an unprecedented couple of years, and I hope I'm wrong about that. But if the astrology is right, that's what it looks like.
All right, we're going to take calls with you, Jeff. Now, do you want birth dates or not?
Whatever works. If they want to give them, that's fine, or we can just use interrogation astrology.
What's easier for you?
Whatever is easier for them.
Because I've got birth dates, so I can give them to you if you want.
Sure, throw it at me.
All right, let's start by going east of the Rockies. Brian's with us, Indianapolis, Indiana. Birth date, Feb 6, 1962, 2662. Hello, Brian.
Hey, George, how are you guys?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Awesome. Jeff, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Hey, listen, me and my wife are huge stargazers. And, we're in tune with the universe. We put out good vibes every day. And my birthday's coming up. I'll be 61 in about 5 days.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Yeah.
I've got my health. I've got a good life. I've got a good job. I've got a good wife. I'm just kind of curious to what this next year is going to bring. You say our country's in trouble, man, and we all of us common people know it's in trouble.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Well, I would say you're talking for you or the country?
Oh, for me.
For you. Okay. Well, it looks to me like I'm just looking at your chart, and I'm being very general here. Definitely watch the money is what it shows. It shows you're going to keep making money. You're working right now, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Working right now, as a matter of fact, literally.
That's what it shows. It shows you're doing all right. Just keep your money tight, and things look good. Your health looks good. Looks really good. You like your job, don't you?
Oh, yes, sir. I love my job. We paid off all of our credit card debt. Man, we're doing excellent. It's taken us 20 years to get to this point with my wife and I, but man, we're
but you got there.
Excellent position. Yes,
good for you. Yeah, well, it's people like you that have a good work ethic that keep this country going, and that's fantastic. What do you do?
I'm a Teamster, 26-year Teamster member.
All right, yeah. It shows you really like your job. Yeah, it shows you like it. That's good. So, how about the price of fuel? Huh? Isn't that crazy?
Diesel's out of whack. But my dad was a 42-year UAW member, and he taught me this work ethic that I have now. And he's passed on, but I really appreciate that from him.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, it shows things will go all right for you, my friend.
Super. Let's go to Jill in Santa Barbara, January 3rd, 1947. Hello, Jill. Welcome to the program.
Hello there, and I did not get a birthday card from either one of you.
Oh, my gosh.
Otherwise, hello. That was a joke since we've never met.
But it was a cute joke. Happy birthday, by the way, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just looking forward to any information you could possibly give me, any insight, any, just anything whatsoever.
Well, I'm looking at this. It shows, I don't know if you're doing anything creative, but the chart shows that that's where I'd be putting my my efforts in right now is creativity. Are you doing anything with writing or creativity?
I'm laughing because that's right on the money. I'm a painter, and
Wow.
I have taught painting for 30 years. I'm not teaching right now because I'm doing so much of my own work. And quite often my painting is used, when I say painting, I mean art, is used in hospitals. I have over 100 pieces at UCLA, and they use it therapeutically. Says it raises people's spirits.
Good for you. That's what it looks like. It looks like you're really good at it too. Yep,
Well,
it looks very good. I'm glad. See, the ruler of your ascendant in this, I'm just using interrogation astrology, is in the 5th house. It's in exaltation. Plain English shows you're pretty good at what you do, and I'll bet you're bringing a lot of light to people. That's what it shows. Keep doing the good work. This is great.
Thanks,
yes,
Jill.
thank you. I'm very, very just honored. I can't think of a better word to hear exactly what you honed in on, because a lot of artists, I think, do their art to be famous. But I think that if you can help other people, it's the highest calling, especially medical. You know, we're just we need so many beneficent things to help people nowadays. So thank you so much.
You bet. Music and art transcends all languages. It's actually the best thing that we need for uplifting the spirit. Good for you, and keep up the good work.
And Jill, I can ask you a quick art question. I bought my daughter a Marc Chagall at an auction. Is that going to be worth anything one day?
It already is.
Really?
Already is, yes. And don't just take anybody's answer for it. Take it to 2 or maybe even 3 appraisers, because you can get somebody, for instance, that can give you a very low value, and what they want to do is buy it from you.
Exactly, at that price.
So they can sell it, or some people may not know. So to get the correct evaluation of it, but unless it's like 2nd or 3rd generation piece of their art, if it's actually an original, it should be quite a large sum, and congratulations.
Yeah, I got a pretty good deal on that. Thanks, Jill. Next up, we're going to Sylvia in Memphis, Tennessee, April 4, 1961. Sylvia, welcome to the show. How are things in Memphis today?
Oh, things are icy and cold.
Icy and cold, and probably you had the memorial for Tyree Nichols today too, didn't you?
Yes. God rest his soul, and prayers going out to his family. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, go ahead with your question, Sylvia.
My question is, I'm going into 62, been unemployed since 2 years now, so I'm looking for the career that will bring me financial security, stability, and I will enjoy doing what I do. I'm looking, and still looking. So I hope I'm looking in the right direction, and maybe even to use my spiritual gift, since I have I think it's called a grand trine in the water houses. So I'm going to yield the floor to you. And thank you for being on the show and answering our questions and my questions.
Oh, you bet. Thank you, ma'am. No, it shows you're worried about things right now. But what I like, I don't know if you're playing around in any way with real estate or something like that you could pursue. Is that an interest to you? Because something in that genre kind of looks good.
No, that's not an interest. Anything else? You can see other.
Well, it shows something connected. What about with people in houses where you could consult with them? It shows something connected with either real estate or people in their homes. Where I don't. What exactly have you been doing?
Customer service.
Customer service.
Customer service, clerical. That's been my background. That's my background. Customer service, clerical.
Well, I would tell you, even though the real estate markets are crazy, you might want to look into the possibility of getting a real estate license down the line or something connected with the home or home consulting. That's what it shows. Or a business connected with that. Because it shows you're worried a lot right now, but things are going to work out eventually here. It shows by the time you start getting into late spring, early summer, that's when it starts working out really well.
Okay, heed his advice, Sylvia, and good luck to you. Next up, we have Doc in Petaluma, California. Just has a question for you. Welcome to the show. Hey, Doc.
You actually got two questions. Thanks, George.
Sure.
I want to know, it seems like the politicians are putting money through Ukraine in order to pad their pockets, like it's coming back to them in a stream. What do you think? Does that sound feasible to you?
Oh, they would never do that. I think we're seeing some very, very dangerous stuff here going on with money. I'm very concerned that they're going to try and get us into digital currency. I don't think it's going to work, but that's what it's leaning towards. We are really seeing, I think, a clash here between, again, the globalists who want literally no borders, a global world with a one world currency versus the independent countries. And, Ukraine has got some very mysterious stuff going on over there. There's no question about that. I really think this is why we're going to see the potential backlash over the next couple of years, and that is the war going on far above the political theater in Washington, D.C. It used to be called the District of Columbia. Now we call it the District of Criminals. But hopefully that will get weeded out. But, I think they're lining their pockets in a lot of ways. And this is clearly, if you're an arms manufacturer, you're going to be very happy about what's happening over there.
What's your second question, Doc?
My second question is about the World Economic Forum. Do you think that they are using your interrogation astrology type, the knowledge of that to affix, what they're doing to us here? I mean, they're putting the pressure on on Americas because of climate change and all those other I call it bunk.
Yep. Excellent question, because there's no doubt in my mind that they are extremely aware of these cycles. I really think when you look into the demonic component that is really behind all of this, it's far, far deeper than anyone would ever realize. The demonic spirits might be actually involved right down to the molecular level of this dimension. That's why they always lose.
That's pretty scary, Jeff. Jeff, you're on your website, of course, jeffharmon.com. Do you take emails, and do people make appointments with you?
Yeah, the best way is jeff@jeffharmon.com. Yeah, we definitely do email appointments, and that's a perfect way to go. And also you can reach us through Facebook and all that, too.
And you don't hold back. You say it the way it is, don't you?
Well, I think honesty is a very good virtue, don't you?
Yeah, it's the best policy.
Yeah, you got it.
It saves you, that's for sure. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go next to Chad in Ohio. June 23rd, 1982, 62382. First-time caller. Hi, Chad. Welcome to the program.
Hey, George, and hi to Art Bell somewhere in space.
Yes, sir. Way up there, wherever he may be. What's your question, Chad?
Well, I've been just kind of looking what's in store for me this next year. I kind of hit rock bottom a couple of years ago and built some walls up around me. And starting in take those down and be more social. And what does he think about Jordan Peterson? He said he was putting together a group to go up against the WEF. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, for you, it looks like you're going to see change in just about 5.5 months, if I'm reading this right. And that's good. And it's going to put you in a new direction. I actually like it. Are you studying anything new right now?
No. I've been in an apprenticeship at work.
There you go. That's it right there.
Now. I'm just pretty much working.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Well, what you're studying is going to pay off, is what it shows, your apprenticeship. So, and I would say, if I'm reading this right, you're going to see about the next, about 5.5, 6 months, things are going to start to turn for you in a much better direction. What have you been studying on the apprenticeship?
I'm a tool and die maker. So we make dies and modify machine parts.
Yeah.
Good profession.
Yeah, it is. I used to do some of that work back in the late 70s, early 80s. It's very necessary. We need more good workers like you in this country that are shipping it overseas. Oh, it's good. It shows you're going to do well. I like it. So now your other question was what?
About the WEF. I assume it's the World Economic Forum?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Mr. Klaus Schwab and Mr. George Soros and the rest of them all over there. Yeah. I can tell you, Klaus Schwab, his mother was a Rothschild. Yeah, you're clearly seeing some people here that I don't know if they have the best interest of humanity in their sights. They really want to push transhumanism and many other things, and I think that this is what the astrology shows, is that we're at a crossroads. I think we're in a new era, and technology and artificial intelligence should serve humanity, not be used to control it. And I think we're going to come out, always in a battle with good and evil on that issue. But the world has changed. It really has. Ever since 220 forward, we are in a new era. And we're going to see things get so high-tech in the future, it's going to be mind-boggling. And I think the more we have good people keeping, things like the Constitution in play and keeping this world on track to serve humanity rather than control it, is where we're going to end up on top. And I think we'll get there. I really do. I just think it's a time where we're seeing a lot of fascism try to be forced upon us. And when we stand up for our rights and don't allow that, that's when it's going to stop.
Absolutely. Next up is Wanda in Colorado. Let's try some interrogation astrology. I won't give you her birth date. West of the Rockies. Hello, Wanda. Welcome to the show.
Hi. How are you, George?
Great. And what is your question for Jeffrey?
I just wanted a general reading. That's about it.
Okay.
Well, I've actually been using interrogation. So, tell me right now, you're worried about stuff is what it shows.
Yes.
Yes. Everything been going okay health-wise?
Yeah, I just got an X-ray result today, and it came out good.
Good.
So that was great.
It just shows a lot of worry and nervous tension.
Oh, yes. Had a lot of stress.
Yeah. Pursue reflexology. I love reflexology. You can actually get a reflex roller. It's called the USJ 101, and really work on the adrenals and see if you can't get yourself more relaxed. And, affirmations are a really good thing. What have you been doing right now for work?
I'm retired. I've been retired for 2 years. So now my job is to worry.
To worry.
Well,
full-time worry ward.
And I haven't gotten I'm like Mom, so we've got a lot of stress going on with
it shows you're going to get into something soon that's actually going to put your skills to work. look at a way that you can start studying some things that can put yourself to work. That's even if you don't want to. I mean, retired is one thing, but you don't want to put yourself on a shelf because it shows you've got a lot of talent that you could apply. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you've done anything in spiritual or consulting work. Is that something you've ever pursued?
Well, I'm very spiritual and very connected to spirit, and actually I really sleep well, and even though I've been so stressed out, I've been doing really well with my sleeping, and it's just been a really busy 2 years.
Yeah. Look at doing something where you could get involved, where you put your skills to work, because that's what it shows. It shows that, let me just do the math here. Yeah, over the next couple of years, you're going to get into something that's really going to be productive. And it's something connected with helping people in a spiritual way. It's either consulting or some kind of a way that you help people through self-empowerment. That's what it's showing. What have you done in the past?
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay,
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Next up, Maria is in Sterling, Illinois, 81373. Hello, Maria. Welcome back.
Hi. Thank you so very much for taking my call.
Sure thing.
I had a couple of questions, but I'll try to make this quick. There's just like kind of a little bit of a backstory. So the last 3 to 4 years of my life have been utter horrible, terrible. Starting in 2019 and 2021, a lot of freak things happened. I was in 2 car accidents within 2 months.
Oh,
just weird freak things happened. I've been without a car for almost a year and a half, and it's been utter horrible. I've lost, my freedom, my independence. I mean, I still have a driver's license, of course, but, I'm dealing with a lot of really bad things. I've been on disability half my life. I'm looking at probably losing my Section 8 voucher for to help pay towards my rent, just because for the first time in the 26 years that I've lived in this apartment, I finally fail inspection. I live in a really tiny apartment. I have no place to put anything. I don't have a vehicle to take anything anywhere. I have no family, no friends, no support system. I've lost pretty much my freedom without having a car. I've never, ever been lucky in love. I have health issues.
Sounds like you got a cloud over your head.
Nothing but bad, horrible things have happened in the last 3 to 4 years of my life. I feel old. I have no energy. I'm tired. I'm not lucky in anything. If anything bad can happen, it does happen to me. If bad things didn't happen to me, nothing would happen to me.
Here's what you've got going on. You've got Saturn transiting the moon. In Vedic astrology, that's called Sati Sate. And even though you're feeling what you're feeling, this is actually a releasement of karmic energy. If you look at the glyph of Saturn, it's the cross over the crescent of the moon. It's previously concretized energies that now become manifest. And what's interesting is this is going to pass. Saturn actually was really tough in January, if this birth date is right. The very first part of last month. Was it really tough over the holidays in January for you?
No, it's been pure, utter horrible for the last 3 years of my life.
But that's where it peaked, is what it shows. And what I like is if you keep going here, one of the things that's really useful is location astrology. I have found that this whole pandemic and the last couple of years, if you can email in, and I can do a reading where we look at your location astrology. Location astrology is astounding because you can literally get longitudes and latitudes, and you have your own personal ley lines. And they say there's 2 ways to really change your life. One is location, and the other is the numerology of your name, and gemstones, too, is another one that really change. Location is amazing because oftentimes you can re-alter the energy in the birth chart by moving to different geographic locations. And you actually have come through, if I'm reading this right. See, this only happens once every 28 and a half years. It's the synodic cycle of Saturn over the moon. So, again, I don't know what time you're born. I just cranked it in really fast, and I went, okay, she just had Saturn conjunct the moon. And this is often a cumulation of a dire time, but we're put in these bodies for a reason. And I always say, no matter what crap storms we go through, there's a reason for it. You know, life is a real blessing. And you can find that when you start, you know, turning the page, and the page is going to start to end. So you're right in the middle of it right now. This is a 7.5-year period. If this is right, you're about just a little over halfway through it. And the backside is when things start getting better. This is when Saturn transits the sign after the moon. It's called the integration period.
They can't get much worse for her.
No, it doesn't sound like it. And but it can't be too bad, or you wouldn't be on the phone. So, you know, it's not over until the fat lady sings. And she hasn't sung yet. So the good news is, you know, there's always a way. And I'm always an optimist when I look at people's charts because, again, we would not be ensouled in these bodies if there wasn't a specific reason for it. And that's where I think the spirit that we're all imbued with is what we've got to grab a hold of and find a way to find our purpose. And Saturn over the moon is a major karmic releasement. These things, they actually say in Nadi astrology, we are put here to purify and rectify many etheric energies known as karmas. And some of them are wonderful, and some of them are really hard. But, you know, one thing's for sure, and your next guest, George, will talk about this, nobody dies. We're all spiritual beings having a physical experience. And I would just encourage you to be, you know, looking at new ways to break out of the rut. See, you're going to have Uranus squaring your sun, and that is the escape from Alcatraz energy, and that's going to start for you right between June all the way into next spring of 2024. So, you know, there's got to be a way you can break out of this rut and find a way. That's what I always look for in readings. It's like, okay, you know, even if the ship is, you know, listing and bowing and the waves are over the bow, how in the heck can we steer it towards calm waters and find our direction? Because that's really what ancient astrology was for. It's a compass to help us understand, you know, where the clearer waters are.
Absolutely. And, Jeff, we are out of time. I want to thank you. We've got your information all linked up at coasttocoastam.com. If you want to listen to our show ad-free, 24/7, access audio archives, live chat with me, and much more, you need to become a Coast Insider now.
So you're telling me your grandmother, who died a few weeks ago, came and visited you last night in your bedroom, and you're not scared?
Are extraterrestrials living among us?
I don't know if it's true or not, folks, but we're going to find out.
If you enjoy stories like these and want to learn more about the mysteries of the universe with me, become a Coast Insider now to access hundreds of our archive shows to listen anytime, anywhere. Sign up now at coasttocoastam.com/Coast Insider. That's coasttocoastam.com/Coast Insider.